Hey y'all, this is Jessica with Bless Your Heart. Let's do an 80s cartoon inspired tumbler today. I'm going to start with my glitter choices, which are Peachy Olive Glitter's Valentine and the GlitterGuy Phoenix, and I'm going to use the Epoxy Method as my glitter adhesion today. The tumbler I'm using is just a sublimation tumbler that has been sublimated on. I just sanded it down a little bit to rough it up, and I'm just going to go ahead and smooth the epoxy over and get ready for glitter. Since I did not base coat this tumbler, I'm going to go full coverage top to bottom and side to side with both of these glitters. I'm going to mostly use the chunky, and then I'm going to go in with the fine that is a very similar color, and I'm going to just fill in all of the little glitter potholes we have, and then we're going to check out our handiwork. When we're done filling in all of the holes or bare spots with this fine glitter, we're going to take that piece of printer paper and we're going to flatten as much of this chunky as possible so we can not use so many epoxy layers, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Once this first layer of epoxy dries, I'm going to go in and seal all of my glitter with polycrylic, and that's just another little added insurance policy to help with not so many epoxy layers. Once the polycrylic dries, I'm going to go in and just put a good layer of epoxy over all of the glitter, and the vinyl I'm going to use today is from TheGlitterGuy, and it is this super fun, colorful vinyl. I have gone in and cut 2 strips, about 2 inches a piece, and I'm going to roughly place them where I want them on the top and the bottom of the cup. I'm going to use the hinge method, and I'm going to try to line them up as best as possible. I'm going to get the top strip on, then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to do the bottom strip. To cut my seams, I'm going to go in and make sure that I cut through both layers of this vinyl, and I'm going to take off the top piece, and then I'm going to pull up the side that's got the bottom piece of vinyl on it, and I'm going to pull out that bottom strip of vinyl that was cut, and that's going to help my seam lay flush next to each other. Now that we're happy with that top stripe, we're going to move on to the bottom stripe. We're going to line it up as pleasing to our eye as possible. We're going to use the hinge method to get it on, and then we're going to cut our seam the exact same way. Now that we're happy with our vinyl placement, I'm going to go in and stripe out these panels of vinyl. I'm going to get that done before we put another layer of epoxy on there. I'm going to double up the stripes, so I'm not really worried about the edge of the vinyl showing. I'm going to start with this yellow gold color, and it's cut just a tad thicker than the red vinyl, and I'm going to lay this on all 4 sides of the vinyl we've already placed, and then I'm going to move on and put the red right on top of it. They are almost the exact same size. They are just a smidgen off from each other. So we're just going to barely see the yellow hanging out of the red. And that's just going to kind of add a little bit of difference to the cup. When I'm laying my vinyl stripes, I generally like to cover the previous seam with a solid piece of vinyl and not cut my seams right on top of each other. That has just helped me lessen the amount of vinyl lifting I have at the end. Once we get all of our vinyl striping laid down, I'm going to go ahead and put another good layer of epoxy on this, and I'm going to get ready for my decal. For my decal, I'm just doing a double offset. I did the very bottom of the offset is the black, and that's a textured vinyl. The middle is going to be just a basic white, and the top part of the decal is going to be a bunch of different colors. Now, I did go and Google what was a quote or a memorable saying from this particular cartoon, and this one says, "Color the world with love," and I thought that was pretty cute. So I'm just going to go line by line, get it all lined up, and then we're going to place it on the cup. Y'all know I love me some parchment method for these offset placements. So normally we do go in and do the full decal at the same time, but since these were all different colors, I cut them all different. So that's why I'm going word by word. But you just want to make sure when you're using the parchment method that you have a tab of your transfer tape hanging over some point so you have an anchor. So you can hold that down, you slip your parchment out, and then voila, you've got you a good lined up decal. Now that we're ready to do the actual offsets on top of each other, it's one fell swoop. You do, like I said before, want to make sure that you have a good anchor of your transfer tape. You want to line that up as best as you possibly can. This really, truly does make it quite easy. Line it up, put your anchor down, slip the parchment out, and you are left with a near flawless decal, and you're ready to use it and place it on the cup. Now that we've got our decal done, it's time to place it on the cup. I want to cover up these seams as best as possible. They are not blaring because this vinyl is so colorful and there's just a lot of stuff going on, but I still want to cover it up a little bit. So I'm going to line that up as best I can. Once I get that done, we're going to move on to the next step. I have decided I want to put a little bit of glitter into the very bottom. So I'm going to use some UV resin, and I'm going to make just a very small amount of the glitter mix of the glitter we have on the actual tumbler. I'm going to fill in this bottom well to almost full. I'm not going all the way full. I'm going to use my UV lamp to cure it, and then we're going to check out our handiwork. Once that UV resin is dry, I'm going to place my little tag on the bottom. This is just a UV DTF. And once I get this done, I'm going to epoxy this entire tumbler until smooth. And here we go. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me today. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.